Former Vice President Mike Pence is speaking out on former President Trump's call to actually terminate, his word, terminate the United States Constitution to overturn the 2020 presidential election and to reinstate him to power. That comes as the White House is ramping up pressure on the GOP to condemn Trump's almost unbelievable thought of shredding the document that enshrines the rights of every American. CNN congressional correspondent Jessica Dean is joining us live from Capitol Hill right now. Jessica, more Republicans are in fact speaking out, but some top GOP leaders are still notably silent. What can you tell us?
They certainly are, Wolf, and we're still waiting to hear from Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who said he'll be talking about this during his press conference, his regularly scheduled press conference tomorrow. So we will hear from him tomorrow on this issue. In terms of other Senate leadership, we did hear from Senator John Thune. He said he could not disagree more with what Trump had said. He's the number two, the Senate Minority Whip here. We also heard in tweets from Senator Mike Rounds. He was pretty strong about it. He said no one should be threatening to terminate the Constitution. Senator Lisa Murkowski saying that suggesting the termination of the Constitution is not only a betrayal of our oath of office, it's an affront to our republic. Now, I was just down at the Senate votes. They just took a vote. My colleague and I talked to Senator Roger Marshall, who told us he simply didn't know what we were talking about. He hadn't read the comments. I told him what those comments were, and he said that he thought perhaps they'd been taken out of context, that we should be talking about other issues, other things like gas prices, like the economy. He did not want to be talking about this, that's for sure. We also tried to speak to Senators Lindsey Graham and Tim Scott. They did not answer any questions about their thoughts on former President Trump's comments. We also heard from his former Vice President, Mike Pence. Here's what he had to say.
I must tell you that I think everyone that serves in public office, everyone that aspires to serve or to serve again, should make it clear that we will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Now, over on the House side, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy has so far remained totally silent on the whole issue. We can point, Wolf, to one tweet, though, back in November, several really weeks ago at this point. He noted that he was vowing to read the Constitution, every single word of the Constitution, on the House floor when Republicans take over in the new session of Congress in January. But that is really the last thing we've heard, and it was certainly before the former president made these comments. And Wolf, one thing to remember, Republicans both in the House and the Senate don't want to be talking about this sort of thing. They had really had this reprieve with former President Trump's comments when he was off Twitter. And now that he's talking more, he's launched his bid for re-election, they're having to talk about it more and more.
They certainly are. All right, Jessica Dean, thank you very, very much. Let's bring back CNN's Abby Phillip and Nia Malika Henderson, along with CNN senior political commentator, the former Ohio Republican governor, John Kasich. And Governor, you just heard Jessica lay out the response that's trickling in from members of your own party. Are you satisfied with the level of condemnation from Republicans in the wake of Trump's call to actually terminate the U.S. Constitution?
Of course not. Well, you know what? Every time he said stuff over the last 4, 5, 6 years, he would say things that I thought were so out of bounds, and somehow people would kind of like it. Remember, John McCain wasn't a hero because he got caught. I mean, I heard him say things like that, and I thought people would just walk away, and they didn't. But now I think the circus is sort of leaving town. There's probably still a few people going to the circus or want to go to the circus, but he's just really, it's just ridiculous, isn't it, what you hear? And I don't know who could be advising him, but I can tell you, whatever he's thinking, he's gaining here. I mean, and then of course that dinner he had with the racist anti-Semite, it's one thing after another. So I think, as I say, I think the circus is leaving town and people about had enough.
We shall see. Abby, just days ago, as you heard, Kevin McCarthy said Republicans would read every word of the U.S. Constitution from the House floor on the first day of the new Congress. He clearly revered the document then. Are you surprised we haven't actually heard from him yet in the aftermath of these Trump statements?
Not surprised at all. And I think that this situation with Kevin McCarthy really highlights what is going on here in the Republican Party. Kevin McCarthy wants to be Speaker of the House. He knows that that is going to be so much less likely if he makes Donald Trump mad. And so he's not going to say anything if he can help it, or if he says something sort of like what happened when Trump had dinner with Kanye West and another anti-Semite, Nick Fuentes, he basically lied and claimed that Trump denounced those two men when Trump never did any such thing, in an effort to try to avoid criticizing Trump in this critical moment. This is what happens, I think, for a lot of Republicans. They don't like what he's doing, but they cannot afford to alienate him. And so they try as much as they can to stay silent.
Nia, what do you think?
No, I think that's right. Donald Trump is still the leader of the Republican Party, despite sending the party to defeats in 2018, in 2020, in 2022, despite the fact that he mounted a coup on January 6th, despite the sort of social media presence that he's had at this point, calling for the termination of the Constitution. And so you've got leaders of the party who are still scared of Donald Trump because they know that roughly, 35% of the Republican Party is still with Donald Trump. Their hearts and minds are still with Donald Trump. They believe what Donald Trump says. And so if you're Kevin McCarthy, if you're Mitch McConnell even, I'm not sure if you at this point are prepared to say that you would not support Donald Trump in 2024. And listen, every Republican leader should be asked that question. Are they going to support Donald Trump in 2024?
Governor, give me your final word.
You had these politicians, they want to inherit the earth and they're going to lose their soul, Wolf. And, it's just beyond the pale. I think his support is slipping. I've been saying it for a while. He's like the Wicked Witch of the West when they threw the water on her. He's shrinking just like she did. Yeah. I think we're beginning to see the end.
It's hard to believe.
He'll never be president.
It's hard to believe a former president of the United States would actually call for terminating the U.S. Constitution. Guys, thank you very, very much.
Sure.
Governor Kasich, Abby Phillip, Nia Malika Henderson. Appreciate it very much.